There are plenty of strongly VRAM limited GPUs on the market. You can remember 3080 with 10 gigs of VRAM, or even 4070 Ti with 12 gigs. Yeah, definitely not enough memory for the GPU price class. But today we want to focus on something more affordable, 8 gigs cards as RX 6600-ish, RTX 3070, 3070 Ti, 2080, probably even 4060 Ti, etc. Hello and welcome back to Hardware Lab. When most of these 8 gigs cards were released, overall public opinion was that it's fine. People saw a lot of not bad performance results and didn't pay too much attention to the VRAM side of things, seriously thinking that if their GPU is faster, it can last longer. But in 2023, the things look a bit rough. There are plenty of complaints of poor behavior of 8 gig cards in modern games, and the opinion that developers are just lazy to manage the VRAM properly. This happens again and again throughout the PC components history. 780 Ti, 1063 gigs, 2066 gigs, but people never learn from mistakes and believe that this time the VRAM won't limit anything. Anyway, for this test we have borrowed an 8 gig sweet spot Palit RTX 3070 Jetstream. This card's memory subsystem is at least not stupidly cut down in every aspect, I'm looking at U6600XT, and it is also considered to be an okay configuration in terms of overall public opinion, unlike 3070 Ti. In this video we will take a close look at some VRAM demanding games and compare the RTX 3070 behavior with the Power Color RX 6700 XT Fighter, which has a 12 gigs buffer. If the game's performance or visuals are unacceptable on the 8 gigs card on Ultra, spoiler they are, we'll do our best to reduce the settings in a reasonable way, to show what 8 gigs are actually capable of as an additional test. Important statement before getting to the test section. This is not a direct battle between 6700 XT and 3070. We understand that both cards have advantages and disadvantages. The point of this test is to focus specifically on the VRAM limitation and examine the 8 gigs achievable maximum in the most VRAM demanding titles. Before making any conclusions, keep in mind that even some new and graphically impressive titles like Atomic Heart or the Calisto Protocol can run on Ultra without getting limited by an 8GB buffer, but this is just not the purpose of this test. Also, we don't regularly pay too much attention to our testing rigs because honestly, if you are GPU limited and you have a rebar and a proper PCIe connection, you just don't care and it doesn't affect the results, but in this test it's a bit more complicated. Since all members of our team are located in different countries and even in completely different parts of the world, we cannot just share a hardware between each other. The only rig we were able to test these GPUs on is a mid-range Ryzen 3600 with 16GB 3600 CL18 memory. The benchmarks are still representative, but CPU and RAM buffer limitation can be a factor in some games, and we'll mention that in the test section. So what do you think? Is there a high-end gaming on 8GB of VRAM? Grab some tea and cookies and let's find out. Right after short ads from our sponsor. Our sponsor is a small computer hardware related YouTube channel called Hardware Lab that you probably never heard about. This channel provides a high quality advertisement integration service, so if you have an online store or something else that requires some attention from hardware enthusiasts, consider using their amazing service. The prices are affordable, the quality is good, and also they respond to offers quite quickly. The link to the price list is on the description. Far Cry 6 was known as a game that struggles to run on 8GB card since release. However, previously the game just didn't load a proper HD texture pack on such GPUs. It has been fixed in one of the updates, but everything comes with a price, And the price in case of this game is a very low performance with scary frame passing issues. This leaves us with quite fun performance data, where AMD's competitor with the proper amount of VRAM shows ridiculously faster and more stable results. For sure, the game can be absolutely playable on the RTX 3070, but achievement of these results requires not only lowering the textures, but turning off all the available ray tracing effects, which makes Nvidia's RT-BVH calculation advantage almost useless in this game, at least for a Quad HD resolution. In our specific case, we get CPU limited in this test, so you should expect even higher FPS on these settings from the RTX 3070 if you have a proper CPU, but it still proves the point. Another not quite new but a really VRAM demanding title, featuring excellent texturing and PBR work. Ray tracing is turned on in this test, and it looks like 3070 is doing great in terms of chip performance, significantly overperforming AMD's card, but the overall stability and frame time graph on 3070 side ruins everything and the game feels stuttery. RX 6700 XT provides a lower but a lot more consistent FPS in this title, despite getting slightly VRAM limited as well in the end of the benchmark section. And again, we can't afford to leave ray tracing enabled on 3070 even in performance mode to achieve a smooth gameplay. Moreover, run-to-run, epic texture setting can cause problems on 3070 even without RT, so we had to downgrade it to high. Cyberpunk test is a pleasant surprise. The game doesn't get limited with the 8GB buffer in Quad HD, at least without ray tracing. Enabling RT in this game can cause some problems, but the overall performance with RT from chip side is unacceptable anyway and requires some reconstruction to run it smoothly, so Cyberpunk is absolutely fine with 8GB cards. I don't know if there is any magic atmosphere in recently released Hogwarts Legacy in general, but there are definitely none if you are playing on an 8GB card, because of the massive framerate drops and inconsistency. And remember that ray tracing in this test is disabled. Some of you may say that the stats look like a CPU limitation, but in fact, the game on 3070 side just gets RAM limited, since we only have 16 gigs of RAM in a testing rig. And that perfectly explains the GPU underload. Would the performance be a lot better if we used 32 gigs instead? I don't really think so, and again, 6700 XT is doing just fine because it doesn't use RAM space for VRAM data. But what if we still want to bring back some magic? Well, need to reduce the texture quality all the way down to medium option. Yes, medium, on 3070. This time we probably really get CPU limited, but most of the framerate problems are now gone, so again, it still proves the point. Forza Tech is one of the most loyal engines to VRAM overflow. If you run out of VRAM, performance just drops, and even that drop is not super crucial. Yeah, there are really small frame time spikes on VRAM limited 3070 that are absent on non-VRAM limited 6700 XT, and overall 3070's performance is not really great, but the game is still fully playable despite running well out of VRAM. Getting fully rid of 8GB VRAM limit in Forza is not an easy task, but by reducing a few settings, the smoothness of the gameplay can be improved significantly. Unfortunately, this improvement requires lowering the geometry quality from extreme to an ultra option, which can be noticeable, and a couple less noticeable downgrades, but the smooth gameplay is really worth it, and we can even leave the RT reflections turned on. Square Enix Forspoken can't provide smooth performance on both 8 and 12GB cards tested, getting extremely VRAM limited in both cases. That happens despite this bench already used the high texture option instead of ultra. 3070 for obvious reasons is a bit less stable. fixing 8GB card's performance in Forspoken requires going down straight to the low texture option and disabling RT effects. This is not a joke, a low texture option. One more result that looks like a joke isn't Doom Eternal. I guess it's a prank from Jensen Huang, and he's already waiting to prank a 4060 Ti future owners. But the good news is that this game doesn't need too much tweaking to stabilize the performance. Reducing the textures to Ultra does the job perfectly. Yeah, it's quite far from maximum Ultra Nightmare option, but the visual impact is not that huge and only visible at a distance due to the specific of texture setting in this game. Still, it's a shame that you can't expect the maximum quality even in the 2020 game with 8 gigs. At first run after the PC restart, Watch Dogs Legion runs like this on 3070. Sometimes. Kinda bad, but still better than in a lot of other games. But if you try to run it multiple times, you will end up with something like this as the average result. Yeah, disrupt engine behavior is kinda random when VRAM limited, and you can never rely on that. Do not really care too much about the final statistics since it represents one of the worst runs, but expect a major randomness in performance with up to 2x difference from the best run to the worst. Fixing this random performance behavior requires not only to disable ray tracing, which again makes the Nvidia RT advantage useless in this specific case, but also lowering the textures and applying the reconstruction, in this case DLSS quality. With that settings, the game becomes fully playable and smooth. In our test, there is a CPU limitation factor again, but you kinda got it already. Well, it was obvious that 8GB would once start having problems. It was obvious with 6GB on 2060, it was obvious with 3GB on 780 Ti, and it is obvious today that, let's say, 12 gigs buffer on 4070 Ti is ridiculous. I don't even think we really need to prove that every time again and again. We really hope that we have slightly changed the perspective of at least a few people that watch this video, and from now they will be a bit more skeptical when they hear something like, well, this time is gonna be okay, X gigabytes is fine, so I don't care it's there on XX70 model for 3 generations already. We completely understand that some people already wish to change 3070 to, let's say, 4070 Ti. They upgrade every gen and they don't mind downgrading a few settings. And that GPU choice is a personal thing that is based on personal use case scenario. But, you know, just be aware, our task is to provide you research and to warn you. If you think that these 2 months without HL videos were disappointing and you have missed us, consider subscribing and joining Hardware Lab Discord server, where you can complain about another game running poorly on 8 gigs of VRAM, and also ask us whatever you want in both text and voice chats. And as usual, stay up to date with HL.